Interior architect, interior designer, interior stylist, interior decorator, which one do you need? Finally, we can get this sorted. Whether you're looking for a career in interior design or architecture, or whether you're looking to hire an interior designer, this will hopefully clarify the differences for you. So let's start with the architect. You need to understand something with architects and architecture. What they do is they design buildings, and they design specifically the structural elements of a building. So most titles of architect is protected. So if you see somebody calling themselves an architect, they will need to be registered with some architectural body, which is usually a government body, and that means that they have a license to practice, because they are usually dealing with structural changes, and will usually they'll be signing off drawings and submitting local authority drawings for you. So if you've seen my video on interior design trends in 2025, you'll know that one of the things that is happening right now is we're actually splitting apart the profession of architect and interior design, and a new profession is forming. And so before I go into interior design and what interior designers do, I'm going to introduce interior architects, because interior architects, so not specifically architects who do usually the outside of a building, they will obviously do the interiors of a building if that is their particular service, but not all architects do, even though they can do that if they want to. An interior architect is somebody who, like myself, is a qualified architect, but also does interior design. But we focus more on the technical aspects of interior design. So we are qualified architects, and then we focus on interior design elements in the work that we do. But yes, we also do architecture if we wanted to, because we are qualified to do that, and we also are qualified in interior design. However, this is a new profession that is really coming about, and this is a profession, if you wanted to hire somebody or if you wanted to become an interior architect, you would typically follow the technical route of studying and usually requiring a license, because the title of architect is still protected even if it's interior architect. But what do? We do usually in commercial interiors, we just focus on the interior architecture. So the structural elements internally. So we do all the building regulations, fire and fire safety, and all of the finishes and things that are required, alongside usually a team of architects. But because there's so much more legislation and requirements in the interiors of properties today, and there is the need for a broader team that is skilled in a much wider area. And so it's a new profession that's really kind of coming about in the last couple of years. And so this is something, if you haven't heard of it before, is something you're now seeing interior architecture job roles coming up. You're now seeing interior architecture degrees, which you wouldn't have seen in the past. Sometimes, and this is kind of the anomaly of Europe, because I obviously I work globally. Something that I do notice in Europe is the term interior architect has actually been around for a little while, but it meant pretty much interior architect in the sense of interior designer. So whereas what's happening now around the world is people are trying to use the term interior designer and interior architect interchangeably, but you can't, because in most places interior architecture is it's architecture, so it is protected, whereas interior design typically isn't. Which takes me on to interior design. What do interior designers do, and why would you hire an interior designer? Well, interior designers are specifically what interior designers do specifically is we do the decorating and interior specifications of a property. That might include floor planning. That might include furniture placement, space planning. That might include, it's quite a broad field. And I think what is really great about interior design is it can dip into these other things, but it doesn't have to, if that makes sense. So depending on where you're located, and also depending on what niche your interior designer is focusing on when you choose your interior designer. They might only do very specific tasks, but they might, like me, do all of the tasks, because obviously I'm trained in architecture as well as interior design. So I actually cover a much broader area in the field. So also because I usually focus on commercial interiors, this is something that I do day to day, but when I was focusing on residential interiors, I did predominantly do what I would suggest is more interior design, interior decorating, interior styling, but now, well, also interior architecture, because that was my niche. But I find with interior architecture for commercial, it probably doesn't span as wide or as broad as it does for interior residential, because we're very focused on a very specific point, which is the technical aspects of getting those applications through for our clients, which are usually landlords or commercial retailers who are dealing with landlords because their property is in a shopping center, for example. So what does an actual interior designer do? Well, they do the space planning, they do the decorating, they do the parts of an interior that if you were designing yourself, you would be able to think of the finishes, floor, ceiling, walls. You might be taking away walls, you might be removing things, but obviously that might require, or usually does require, some kind of permit. So in some areas, some interior designers are able to do some permitting. In most areas, they cannot, and you'd have to check that out in your area. What about interior decorators? Well, an interior decorator typically focuses on soft furnishings, and I think this is something that a lot of interior designers and interior architects might do as well. But an interior decorator, if you're looking to hire somebody who just does curtains, or looking at the colors and the decor, but more focusing on soft furnishings, this would be an interior decorator. Which takes me on to interior stylists, which also, and actually just a note, in some areas interior decorators can be licensed. I think it's good old Canada. They love licensing everything. But I think you can become a licensed interior decorator in Canada. If, I don't think it's compulsory, but I'll double check that. Or I would double check that if you're looking for an interior decorator, or if you're looking to become an interior decorator. Next is interior styling. What do interior stylists do? Well, when you think about interior styling, think about if you turned a house upside down and all the pieces that would fall out, that is where the interior stylist's focus is. It's all on the decor items that you can bring into the property and how they're positioned, how they're used to create a style, how to focus your attention, how to really create those finishing elements and finishing touches of a property, no matter if it's commercial or styling for an editorial or for a residential. So quite a broad field as well. I suppose interior decorating in comparison is more residential, because if you're in the commercial industry, you probably would hire an interior architect or an interior designer, not usually an interior decorator. But if you are in residential, you might hire an interior designer, an interior architect, or an interior decorator or an interior stylist, depending on what type of work you wanted to have completed. And finally, let's finish with interior stages, because this is an important distinction, because we do work in interior, but it's a commercial aspect of interior design, where you're either creating virtual staging, so using images of properties that are empty and staging them for sale. And again, there's the option to do physical staging, which means you would bring furniture into the property and physically set the stage for that sale, and then the whoever is it, the realtor or the client will rent that furniture from you for a specified period of time. So that's the differences. You've got you've got interior architects, you've got interior designers, interior decorators, interior stylists, interior stagers. So hopefully that clarifies it for you. We've also got a blog post on this topic if you would like to read about it a little bit further and also get a downloadable with some specific points. That should clarify it for you.